All right. Are we ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Action. Welcome back. Hello, beautiful people. You are joining another episode of Living with Audacity, and I am your host, Aisha. Always grateful to be here with all of you. Always encouraging you to subscribe, like, comment, do all the things. So what's today's topic? What are we going to be talking about today? So today we're going to be talking about the courage to be seen, visibility without apology. Because, when we're living with Audacity, we do all things unapologetically. But I'm mindful that when we talk about visibility, it can be a little bit scary because it means we're actively putting ourselves out there like I'm doing right now, and that I've been doing probably for like 8 months as I show up on Living with Audacity and Bestie, because, I have another podcast that I do with my best friend. And just, it isn't easy, okay? I'm going to be honest. Visibility can be a challenge. And today I want to explore why it is so important for us to come out of the darkness and actually come into the light. And so something else I kind of want to start this conversation about is when I talk about visibility. So visibility isn't just about being noticed. Okay. So we're not just talking about like, hi, I'm visible and people can see me. Obviously I'm not a ghost. This is not Casper. October or Halloween is over. What I'm talking about is what it means to be known. Right? And really the level of courage, awareness of self, being grounded, being affirmed in who you are, that counters sometimes what it means to put yourself out there. Right? If you're an influencer, no matter who you are, we know that showing up as our authentic self, being visible in our fulsome can be it can be a challenge. It can be difficult, but I want you to think about again, what gifts you're not giving to the world by hiding in the shadows. And so today I really want to unpack, what it really looks like when we choose visibility, not again as performance, but as power, right? Not as something that you chase for validation, but really something that you embody within. So as always, I want you to grab your tea. I want you to settle in, and I want you to get ready for this topic because it's an important one. Everything that I talk about is important, but this one is a really big one for me, especially as I find myself really putting myself out there even more than I've had before. And listen, I'm an extrovert. Again, the energy that you see online is literally the energy like in person, but I'm also mindful that I'm also exposing myself, right? That I'm leaving myself open to a lot of criticism, to misunderstanding, to judgment, to narratives that, I know come with showing up as my full authentic self. But understand that I am unruffled and I'm unbothered. So for those who want to come for me, okay? Come for me because I'm ready. Anyways, first we're going to talk about like why is there so much fear, or why is visibility so risky? Again, I think we need to be honest, to be seen in our fulsome self. And when I say fulsome, I'm not just talking about all the great things that we see, how we look, how we talk, the prettiness that we show up in. I'm talking about like the highs and the lows, right? There's a lot that comes with being our authentic self and allowing people to see all of that. Right? Because again, visibility doesn't just mean that people notice you. It actually means that people might judge you, and they might misunderstand you, and they might try to project their own insecurities on you. And so what do you do with that? Right? The truth is, many of us have learned to equate visible with being vulnerable. That's a really big one. I was, again, as I was prepping for this, I saw that line. I thought, ooh, okay, so like we often think that being visible means that we're being vulnerable. And really, being vulnerable is a part of it, right? When you're putting yourself out there, you are stepping into an area of vulnerability because, again, you're opening yourself up to people's critique and to their feedback, whether you desire it or not. But I want us to understand, again, why it can feel risky and how we have to receive that risk, but understand that we're doing a disservice by not showing up as our most authentic self. And I did talk about that in another episode where I talked about that need to mask, because we are mindful that people are uncomfortable or are uncomfortable with our greatness. Visibility is kind of in alignment with that, right? And so little by little, I want us to start thinking and understanding that when we are shrinking, okay, when we're dimming our light, when we're softening our opinions, when we're editing ourselves to make ourselves comfortable or digestible for others, you are dishonoring yourself. Let me tell you something right now. If someone can't handle your confidence, if they cannot handle your assertiveness, if they cannot handle that you have a level of awareness that you have purpose and power, that is for them. If they're telling you, you know what, maybe if you just moved a little to the side, maybe if you weren't so out there, because I have heard that so many times. You know how many times I've heard people say to me, oh my God, Aisha, like you're so out there. Like you're always just on. Yes, the F I am. I absolutely am. And I will continue to be because that's who I am, right? That visibility, I know what it comes with, and I'm prepared to accept that. Wasn't always the case. And so visibility can feel risky because it's vulnerable work, right? To be vulnerable is not always easy, particularly in an environment, system, and structure that again, there's another episode that I'm going to be posting where I invite my daughter and her best friend, Ren, or one of her best friends. I don't want to get her in trouble. One of her best friends to the show. And one of the things they talked about was the level of insistent judgment that young girls feel and face when you're visible, when you put yourself out there. If it's not the shoes you're wearing, it's the hair, it's the body, it's the makeup. It's not good enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not thin enough. You're too tall. You're too slim. You're too big. So being visible absolutely opens yourself up to a narrative that we're not necessarily prepared for. But what I'm going to say to you is, again, when you are affirmed and confirmed in who you are, being visible is kind of the end game, right? You want people to see yourself in your glory. You want people to understand that you are affirmed in who you are. You want people to see, experience, right? That level of profound depth and awareness that you have about yourself. But it also means that, again, there's an element of vulnerability that's coming into this space. And so there's a difference, right? Again, I want to make sure we make that clear. There's a difference between being visible and being validated. Okay, I'm going to say that again. There's a big difference between being visible and being validated. And I wrote this down because I needed to make sure that I remember this point. Visibility is an act of courage. It is a declaration that says, I'm here and I am enough as I am. Validation, on the other hand, seeks approval, and it says, I'm here, but only if you say I'm worthy. Now, let me tell you this, and you've heard me say this over and over and over and over again. There was a point in time in my life where I operated in such a state of validation that I would shapeshift and I would be all the things that people needed me to be because I needed others to validate my worthiness. Well, people, child, I am in a state of visibility, okay? I am here in all of my glory. I am here in all of my boldness. I am here unruffled and unbothered. And if that disrupts you, if you feel uncomfortable with that, then that is for you to figure out. But I want us to understand that visibility and validation, there's a line between them, right? And really the audacious choice that I seek all of you to make, right, in your own personal journey is to show up without waiting for permission. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it louder. Not that you can hear me screaming in the studio, but hopefully your volume is on high. The audacious choice is to show up without waiting for a permission or applause. Okay? You don't need anybody to celebrate you. You don't need anybody to tell you a good job. You don't need anybody to say like, you know what? It's your time. No. You let them know that you have the depth of awareness, that you have arrived, that you are here. And it's funny that I'm having this conversation in my head. Well, I'm not having this conversation in my head because I'm obviously having a conversation with you because I'm talking out loud. But I had this thought the other day. A situation came up. And what I will say is I learned a very profound lesson with a decision that was made for me, not by me. And it was the perfect decision because what I realized, I know I'm speaking in circles. What I realized is before the decision was made for me, I was seeking validation for something that actually wasn't right for me, right? I was seeking validation for something that was not right for me. And when the decision was made for it not to go the direction that I wanted it to, I realized that it actually wasn't the right decision for me. So I was grateful that someone, again, I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit ruffled. I was a little bit in my feelings. But then I had to sit back and say, Aisha, you actually weren't ever making that decision for you. You were making it because you needed somebody else to say you were worthy. So good for you. Right? Sometimes life will humble you in a way that you need to check yourself. And remember, I always say life isn't linear. Like, I'm on this journey, and yeah, I am aware of my greatness, but I also know that I will find myself back into patterns in different situations. And so again, when we talk about visibility, again, the visibility to know that I am affirmed, right? And not that I'm seeking validation. I just need people to know I'm here. I don't need you to know how I'm here. I don't need you to know why I'm here. I don't need you to validate why I'm here. You just need to know why I'm here. Full stop. Right? And so getting clear about, again, that double dutch between, are we really seeking visibility or are we seeking validation? Humbled, to say the least. Right? So then the next part of this, when we've kind of come to a place where we understand, yeah, you know what? I am seeking visibility. I am seeking to step into my power. The next part of this is reclaiming the right to take up space, because this is a big one. Okay. We are often taught, wait for your turn, right? Like, what do we tell children, right? Which, listen, we need to wait your turn, wait till you're called upon. It's not your turn. It belongs to somebody else. That's cool, right? Because we're trying to teach a level of respect and give and take. But let me tell you something else, okay? I don't know. I'm listening to myself and I'm like, you're out here yelling at the people then, but I need to do that. Take up space, okay? Because the truth is, no one's necessarily going to give up their space in the name of your space. And sometimes you need to let people know that you have arrived. Not even that you're on your way, but that you're here. That's what visibility is. Right? We need to start reclaiming and taking up our space. We have the right to take up space. Doesn't mean people want us there. Doesn't mean we were invited. In fact, most of the time when you haven't had the opportunity to take up space is because they don't want you there. But it also means that, again, you're not seeking that validation. You're seeking the visibility to let them know that you've arrived and that you've pulled up a seat, right? Even if you're sitting slightly on the outside. So for a really long time, again, we've been taught to see visibility as exposure, right? Like, oh my God, I'm exposing myself. I'm putting myself out there. I mean, I am to a certain degree. But think about all the risks that you've taken in your life and that have resulted in success. It wasn't because you were outside hiding behind the chair. It was because you put yourself out there, whatever that looks like, right? It's because you took the risk. Because again, here's another truth. Taking up space, I got to read this because this is a big one for me. Taking up space isn't arrogance, it's alignment. It's saying, I belong here, my voice matters, and my presence has value. I have said it time and time again, and it's nothing that I just preach. It is what I firmly believe. That when I leave a space, particularly a space that hasn't been curated for me, particularly for a space where I am not the dominant, particularly the space where I know people are kind of wondering, why is she here? Let it be known that by the time I'm finished doing whatever it is I'm doing, whether it's a keynote, it's a workshop, you're looking for me, not the other way around. Now that has come, again, with time and self-awareness and a lot of work. But I say that not with arrogance, I say that with confidence. I say that with a depth of awareness that I belong in the spaces that I show up in, regardless if you think I don't belong here. Why? Because what I'm bringing to the table is value, right? Again, not seeking that validation, but just aware of the gifts that I possess. And so when we root visibility and self-trust, because that's another one, okay? This is another big piece about visibility, is having self-trust, right? Having the trust to know that I'm not going to lead myself astray, that I'm not going to intentionally harm myself, that there might be situations that I place myself in where I'm like, ooh, I'm a little bit fearful, or ooh, maybe, I got to be aware. But I would never dishonor and put myself in a predicament that wasn't right for me, right? I want you to be mindful that it stops being about who's watching and starts being about how we show up. I'm going to say that again. When we get comfortable in a space of visibility, what we're saying is that it is no longer about who's watching. and starts being about how we are showing up, right? Because let's be real, audacity at its core, again, is that quiet, kind of grounded belief that says, I deserve to be here fully, freely, and unapologetically. It's that bravado. Have you ever been in a scenario where, they have that emoji that has that little smirk that that's what being visible in your audacious self looks like. I don't need to say anything. I don't need to talk. You're just going to experience me in a way that lets you know that I know I'm here, that I am visible to you, that you see me. Even if you don't want to see me, you're seeing me. That's what visibility is, right? It's not just the I'm here, look at me. It's not done by flash. Sometimes it's not even done by the things that we say. It is just our sheer presence that lets people know we are visible, right? Your body language, your tone, your laughter, your stillness, your comfort in quiet can sometimes be the biggest sign of visibility, right? Because it all speaks to who we are and where we are at. And again, when you're rooted in authenticity, people feel that, right? People really feel that and they gravitate to that. And they may not always understand, but they know it exists. I'm grateful in this journey that I've been through, that I've had people say, oh my gosh, Aisha, your energy just gives me light. And it reminds me that I can be all of who I am, regardless if people are comfortable with who I am, right? Because I remind you that when people put a lot of emphasis in dimming your light, again, telling you you're too loud, you're doing too much, right? They're projecting often their own insecurities. And it is easy for us to feel like, oh, okay, well, maybe I am doing too much, or maybe I am a lot. Okay. But you're also a lot for someone who needs to also see that example, right? People are very comfortable in this is on topic, off topic. But for me, the level of effort that someone takes to come over and tell you something negative about yourself, why don't you do your own personal work? Why don't you take your own energy and your own mouth and turn it around and tell yourself something? You know what I mean? You took the time to walk over, tap me on my shoulder, and be like, oh, don't you think you're doing it too much? Don't you think you're doing too much by having made the effort to walk 5 steps towards me to tell me something? Go back in your corner and leave me alone. Right? Now, I've never been that disrespectful. However, my facial expression and my body language has told him to stop talking and turn it around. Right? Because I like to maintain. I'm a respectable woman of the community. I like to maintain a level of decorum. But believe me, the inner Cardi B in me has something to tell you. You know what I mean? But we need to be mindful of that, right? Taking up space doesn't mean that you have to be the loudest person. That's another big one. Taking up space doesn't mean you need to be the loudest person or the boldest person. It means that you're showing up in your truth. And listen, I want you to think about the people that you've met in your life. Maybe it is yourself. And when you've seen someone, you scan a room and you just see someone who just stands out to you because of the way that they're standing, the way that they're just kind of looking around. It's like the quiet confidence. Sometimes you don't need to let people know you're in the room. They just need to experience you in the room. Right? That's what visibility is. So again, I want us to counter this concept of visibility just being the actual visual of what you see. Visibility is letting people know that you're present, that you are here, again, that you have arrived. And so I want you to think about, what would it look like for you to show up as though you already belonged? Right? So, you enter into spaces and we're like, oh my God, should I be here? Should I not be here? Is this place for me? Is it not? Imagine if you showed up into a space where you're like, I am supposed to be here. Imagine the energy. Imagine what you are permeating through your visible, through your spiritual, through your articulation when you're having the conversation where people are like, whoa, I need to connect with this person. That's what visibility is. Again, it isn't just about the physical presence. It's about the way in which you're showing up. Right? So I want you to also take a moment, right? And reflect, right? Has there been a moment where you wanted to show up, where you wanted to be your most visible self, but you felt like, would it be too much? And what did you lose? And not lose from the perspective of business, but what did you lose within yourself by not showing up as your authentic self. Because let me tell you something, you are sacrificing something every single time that you do not show up as your authentic self. Believe me, you are actually sacrificing more than not, you know what I mean? You're sacrificing more by not showing up as your authentic self. So I want you to think about that. Take that opportunity to reflect. What are the things that I have dishonored about myself? What are the things that I've left behind? What are the things that I haven't done? What are the ways that I haven't grown? Because again, I've been more focused on the validation side than the visibility side, on making people feel comfortable about with who I am versus just showing up as my authentic self and them having to figure out how they navigate around my energy. Right? And so, of course, because with Living with Audacity, I always love to, offer takeaways or just things for us to think about, right? We are in a beautiful stage and age of growing and evolution, and that things are not always going to work out, but that we get to course correct. That is what life has presented us, right? Not just the hardships, but opportunities to grow. So one of the first things is to understand that visibility is courage, not performance, right? Showing up as your most authentic self doesn't require validation from others. It does not. Again, easier said than done. And as a former validation seeker, I can tell you there's nothing more freeing than not giving a shit about other people approving who you are. It is such a freeing experience, right? Being seen is an act of self-trust. Okay, I want to say that again. Being seen is an act of self-trust because what it means is that you are affirmed in who you are and other people's validation of you is only secondary. Right? That is a freeing experience. The second one is playing small disconnects you from your truth. Okay? Let me tell you something. When you know you have a gift, when you know you have a purpose, when you know you have power, you are dishonoring yourself by being small. You're not supporting the other person. You're not making them feel better. You are dishonoring yourself. And to live with audacity is to ensure that the energy, the time, the expertise, the love is channeled here first before you give it outward. Okay? So be mindful that playing small disconnects you from your truth. The third one is taking up space is an act of alignment, right? Your presence is not arrogance. It's authenticity. Right? Whether you are speaking up, whether you are setting boundaries, or simply existing without apology, like not having to be like, oh, I'm so sorry that I'm cute. Oh, I'm sorry that I'm smart. I'm sorry that I'm successful. Yo, I'm not sorry for any of it. Why? Because I've worked my ass off to get here. Right? And I say that not because I haven't had people in my life who haven't supported that, but like, I'm not going to apologize for the successes that I have created in my life because it has come with pain. It has come with some suffrage and it has absolutely come with sacrifice. So for me, I'm going to sit in that glory for the things that I have worked hard for, right? The fourth one is authenticity is felt before it is heard. Okay? You need to feel, when you are not being your authentic self. Again, another episode in Living with Audacity, I talked about, again, living with a mask. We know in our gut and in our mind when we are not being authentic. You'll say something, you're talking away, and in your head, you're like, girl, why are you even talking like that? Like, why are you behaving in this manner? Like, you're almost having an outer body experience where you're watching yourself not be authentic, right? That's a hard thing to reconcile when you look at yourself in the mirror and people are like, or people who know you are like, girl, what are you doing? Stop doing that. Like, stop behaving in that way, right? So remember, authenticity is felt first before it's heard. The fifth one, unapologetic visibility inspires others. There is someone that you're connected with. There's someone who's watching you, who's watching you just show up and saying, you know what? I can do this. I belong in these spaces, or I belong in another space. And because Aisha does it, or because Shireen does it, or because whoever does it, I could do it. We have no idea who's watching us. Now, keep in mind, there's a lot of people that are watching and hating, but there are probably more people who are inspired by the things that you're doing. So show up. Let people know that they also need to give themselves permission to be authentic, to be bold, to be unapologetic. The sixth one is self-reflection strengthens audacity. Okay? Listen, this journey that we're talking about, living with audacity, also requires a level of self-reflection. Okay? You need to do your own work and realize, again, where are my strengths? Where are my shadows? What are the things that I need to change? What are the things that I need to evolve from? What are the things I need to grow from? What are the things that I need to stop doing? right? Self-reflection is fundamental in living with audacity, because who you were 10 years ago looks different to who you are today is going to look different than who you are in 10 years. But that requires self-reflection, and not just aesthetic, superficial self-reflection. I'm talking the deep work where you have to look at yourself and be like, "Ooh, you got to stop doing that, Aisha," or "you got to do better," or the things that you're doing aren't serving you, or the people, places, and things in your life aren't, creating greater opportunities for you. Be honest with yourself. And the last one is visibility is a practice, not a destination. Okay, being seen is uncomfortable, right? Every week that I come into this podcast and I put myself out there, I'm exposing myself to hate. I'm exposing myself to negativity. I'm exposing myself to comments, but I'm also exposing myself to love and to support and to inspiring others to see themselves as worthy. And that for me supersedes over the 1 to 2, 3, 4, when I get big, maybe hundreds of thousands of people that hate. You can keep that hate. You can keep all of it, right? Because for me, and I'm only speaking about myself, that kind of hate actually serves as a motivation, because I'm here to ruffle your feathers. If you've taken the time to go through this podcast and decide that you don't like me, but you keep coming back, thank you for the subscription. Thank you for the views. But understand that I'm unruffled by that. And I'm going to continue to show up for those who are also seeking this audacious life, right? That's for me the focus. And so, again, as a reminder, right, you really don't need anyone's permission. Like, that's the beauty of adulthood. When we're teens, we're like, I can't wait to be an adult so I can do whatever I want. You've reached it. You've reached a place in your life where you don't need permission to be great. You don't need permission to show up as your best self. You don't need permission to take up space. You don't need permission or validation for somebody to say you're worthy to take that next step. You're an adult. You can claim that yourself, right? Easier said than done, for sure. But if you're committed to your growth, if you're committed to living with audacity, it means that you're committed to, again, doing so without the permission of others telling you that it's your time, right? Living with audacity isn't about performing. It isn't about approval. It isn't about waiting for validation. It really is about showing up fully and authentically and unapologetically. Understanding that there will be, some pushes and pulls. That's fine. That's growth. That's life. Life isn't linear, right? The things we've achieved in our life have not happened just in a straight line. They've probably happened more in chaos and out of hardship than they have out of greatness. And that's okay, right? Which is why it's so important to hold on to that. So today I really want to challenge you. Actually, today I challenge you every minute. I'm all about the challenge. I'm all about growth and pushing people out of their comfort zone. But I want you to ask yourself this: where can I show up more boldly? Right? Where can I stop dimming my light? And where can I honor my truth without compromise? I want you to do some reflection on that and think about those 3 areas. Again, where can I show up more boldly? Where can I stop dimming my light? And where can I honor my truth without compromise, right? Claim your space, right? Don't dishonor your gifts and your purpose and your power because you think other people are going to be uncomfortable with it. Be visible. Be visible with whatever you're comfortable with. Like, again, I'm not telling you to just put all of yourself out there, but put something out there. You have a gift, right? There's something to be seen. There's something to be shared. And people that are really struggling with shining a light on themselves will be inspired by watching you. And so in this process, I always want you to kind of take a deep breath. I want you to be confident in the knowledge that you have and the journey that you've put yourself on, and know that, again, living with audacity isn't linear, but that we do have to put ourselves out there so that we can almost see ourselves step into greatness, right? And so again, I want you to have a great day. I want to thank you for showing up for another episode of Living with Audacity. I want you to comment, right? Like, let me know, what are the ways that you're also going to start being visible? What are the things that you're going to be doing where you put yourself out there? Again, mindful that there's going to be maybe some negativity, but mindful that you're doing more inspiring than you are, troubling the waters, I'll say, right? I want you to stay bold. I want you to be unapologetic and stay authentic. And thank you for joining me on another episode of Living with Audacity.